Hello all, welcome to TechGig webinars. The topic for today's webinar is the future desktop. What will the future desktop really contain? Where will the future desktop be? These are some of the questions that would be answered in today's webinar by Mr. Bright Augusta, our expert speaker today. Mr. Augustus is lead business productivity group at Quadra. He is a functional consultant on portals, content management, and project management, and has been extensively profiled by leading software vendors as a noted productivity consultant on information worker applications. Gentlemen, this session will continue for 45 minutes. You can ask your questions by typing in the chat pane available. So without further ado, I request Mr. Augustus to continue with the session.
Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon. Your voice is
all of you are able to look.
So let's get started,
Okay.
Dr. Webinar.
Yes. Okay. Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bright from Quadra Systems. I am the lead for the business productivity group here. I'm also in charge of the cloud consultancy group at Quadra. So I consider this a great privilege to present a webinar on the topic, the future desktop. Okay, now the future desktop. What do we mean by the desktop? A number of people are today still are stuck up with that particular idea that a desktop is just the hardware that is sitting on the table. It is certainly called as a desktop computer, but it's not the desktop. The desktop computer that we see on our desks at home and at our offices and other internet parlors, those desktop computers, they contain the desktop which we will be working on. So the screen here right on top shows you the desktops that were in use very long time ago. Now, the first two that are on top of my slide, these two are pictures that I got from the internet about the desktop that people had been using a long time ago, right at the time when desktops became very popular. Think about it, those days when Bill Gates, the co-founder of Microsoft, his vision was to put a desktop on every desk in every home. But don't you think that that vision has already been realized multiple times? Because we don't see just one desktop in every home or on every desk. We see many desktops in every home on every desk. That is because of the size of the desktop that has been shrinking right from those days till today. Now the desktop, some of the desktop images that I have displayed right at the bottom of my my screen, the slide. These are some of the desktops that we are familiar with in modern days. Now the desktop is that particular screen that you see as soon as your system is booted up, and that shows what are the files and applications and the storage locations that you are now working on, which are available to you in your systems. So some of the pictures that I thought would be of great use to you, that is a 3D desktop that is showing up as an image. That is another with a lot of icons displayed on the desktop. That might be the desktop of a very, very busy CEO because he's got a lot of icons there displayed. Now, the desktop that we are familiar with today, will that be the same in the days to come? Now, the desktops that we are talking about, the future desktops. Now, I'm not a prophet going to tell you what will happen 20 years from now. But then, all the indicators that we get from leading software vendors, they give us a picture of what would the desktop be like in the future. Now, the desktop of the future is certainly going to be a virtual entity. That's what I would want to predict. If not today, in the next couple of years, we will see desktops becoming virtual entities, in the sense you would not see the desktop resident on one system, but the desktop will be delivered from a remote place to multiple different independent machines or gadgets that people will be using. So the desktops that people that will be using in future will not be just one set of hardware, but then we see people using a desktop at their office, people using a desktop at their homes, people having a handheld device, people using a mobile phone. All of these are gadgets that people keep using all the time today. And one cannot imagine a person without a handheld device or a mobile phone on which he would want to access his information. Now, the desktop of the future would be delivered to these independent machines or gadgets, and that will be from a remote location. So your desktop might look the same in your PC that's that's in your office. It will look the same in your home where you will be working. It will look the same in your handheld device as well as your mobile phone or your laptop. So it's going to be a uniform look and feel when the desktop is delivered to you. So the applications that you are used to, the files that you are working on, and all the important communication applications that you use to communicate with people, mailing or instant messaging or voice or audio, video conferencing, all of those applications, those those applications with the data will travel with people wherever they go. So that is a jargon called as continuous and connected. Now, continuous is it's going to be with you always, and connected is you are always available to people who are around you and who are the stakeholders of the data that you carry with. So you don't have to come to the desktop in order that you will be able to connect to somebody, or you will be able to access your data, but the desktop will be coming with you. You will be carrying the desktop with you everywhere you go. So that is going to be the desktop of the future. And that is what we are going to talk about in a few minutes now. Now, it's going to be everywhere. It's going to be continuous and connected. Where will the desktop be? The desktop will reside in the data center that is providing you this particular facility. The data center will push the desktop to your gadgets or machines. The data center most probably would have been, say, virtualized, certainly, because we know of the cloud technology that is pervasive and which is coming up in a huge way everywhere. So the cloud technology and the virtualization, that would help people to build private clouds. We know about the public clouds that are already existing and are available to people in different ways, in different delivery models. Now, those clouds will contain the desktop. The desktop will be residing in those virtualized data centers, and as and when you require, what you would do is you will switch on your machine. It could be your PC, it could be your laptop, it could be your mobile phone, but then immediately you will see the desktop being made available to you from the cloud. So the desktop is going to reside in the data center and will be made available to your gadgets. Now the entire desktop with its operating system and the applications will be delivered from a remote location, I told you. Now, that is made possible with the help of what is called as the desktop virtualization and the application virtualization technology that is available today. Now this is made possible because of the one and the only technology that has now caught its focus and attention with the IT information technology decision makers and decision influencers. That is the virtualization technology. In the sense, virtualization is moving from a physical hardware into moving all the servers and the applications to a completely linked, completely shared atmosphere where all your data and all the applications are made available as a shared entity, and as and when you require, you will be able to pull those applications and data from the cloud. So private cloud and public cloud, two different ways by which the cloud technology is being delivered. Private cloud is the entity where the data center in an enterprise has got all its servers shared, servers virtualized, and the storage and the applications, all of them are virtualized again, in the sense as and when a desktop requires or sends a request for an application, it can get the application from the data center, and the application can run on the desktop on the machine that has received the desktop. Now, application virtualization, the desktop itself can be virtualized. That's what we started with. Now, the virtualized desktop is the complete operating system with all its applications and the data being got from the virtualized data center, and now that is being delivered to the gadget that we are using, whether it's the laptop or the desktop. So what happens is, this desktop is going to be made available to everybody who are using this kind of technology wherever they go. So they need not be tied to a particular machine or tied to a particular gadget. They can also access their desktop from any kind of device. So that is also possible. So all of this is going to happen. It's happening already. So the technology that is required for delivering this kind of a virtualized desktop or virtualized applications is now in place, and people will be able to. Hello? Hello?
Yeah,
now, applications will be tapped from cloud. Hello? Hello?
Yes, please continue. Thank you.
Applications will be tapped from the cloud as a software as a service model. Now, software as a service is the topmost level of service that a service provider can provide. Now, think about mailing as a service. Now, mailing is delivered from the cloud as a software as a service from a number of providers. such applications like say a document management system. Document management system on the cloud is also available from a number of cloud service providers. That is also a software as a service that is being delivered. There is also something called as the platform as a service that people are already aware of. Applications will be executed on the cloud. In the sense, if you want to run an application and you want to run it on the cloud, the cloud service provider will provide you the platform on which the application needs to be executed. So what we'll do is you will host your application on the platform that the platform as a service provider, and people will be able to execute the application from that particular platform. Now, the data that is required for running this particular application that is going to be tapped from the cloud or executed on the cloud, that also can be supplied from the cloud itself. The data will reside on the cloud, and the application will pull the data from the cloud and execute the application for you. And the data that is being generated during the application also will be stored on the cloud. Now, such kind of a technology is available, and this has made possible the virtual desktop to come into existence. So what people who are going to use the virtual desktop will do is they will have access to the desktop on their gadgets, and applications that they want to run on their desktops, they can run it either by downloading those applications into their systems or pull those applications from the cloud and make the applications to get executed on the cloud. The data is no more going to be made available from the local storage devices anymore. Let me go to the next screen for you, the applications and the data. When the data is being stored in the cloud and it gets delivered to the applications on the cloud, what happens is you get rid of that big risk of storing all the data in the local devices. Now, all these days, we are very much aware of how data is stored in our local storage devices, hard disks and USB drives. Now, that is a big risk for any enterprise, because the data that resides in a local storage device, in a laptop's hardware, in a laptop's hard disk or a PC's hard disk, that will pose a big risk for the enterprise, because the confidentiality of the data is compromised many times. The data that is very, very critical, such data, when they are residing in a local storage device, the enterprises are always risking their data, because there is all possibility of the data being lost or pilfered. So if the data that is now being made available to the applications and the data that is being generated by these applications, if they can be brought to a centralized storage, then the enterprises will have all the control over the data. So what happens is the enterprise will be able to own all the enterprise data, whether it's going to be files like office files or picture files or images, or any kind of file that is being generated by the everyday applications, or whether it's going to be mails or instant messages that are being shared between people on every day in an enterprise. All of these are going to be very, very important for the enterprise. So when these kind of data are now going to be stored in a centralized location, in whether it's going to be the private cloud or public cloud, then the enterprise will have all the access and the control to the data, and this will make the risk of sharing or storing the data in the local devices minimum. So what happens is the enterprise will have the ownership of the enterprise data. So the intellectual property of the enterprise will now move to the centralized storage, and so managing it and controlling the access of this kind of data will now completely be the responsibility of the enterprise, and it becomes easy for them to maintain, manage, make backup, and store it and record for future reference or future use. All of this is made possible with the help of this particular technology that's available today. So the desktops don't have to store their data in their local machines. Now this is another advantage on the user side, because the data, when it's available from the cloud, he will have access to the data from everywhere. From wherever he goes, he will be able to access the data from there. So in a sense, this person has a person who is going to use a virtualized desktop and do his everyday work would not have to always work from a given cabin or a given geographical location. He can work from anywhere. He is given the independence of working whether from within the office or for outside the office, whether he is at home or whether he's at a holiday location. Wherever he is, he will have access to all the applications and the data from the centralized storage location, that is the cloud, and so he has greater independence to work from anywhere. So people need not walk into the offices all the time, and work from home will become a reality for a number of people. So what happens is, because the intellectual property of the enterprise, that is the mails, the files, the structured and unstructured files, the pictures, the images, whatever people collaborate with, all of those information that belongs to the enterprise will face relatively less risk, as the data will move from personal storage devices to the centrally managed and the storage. Now, who will manage these desktops? I told you the desktops are going to be delivered from a centralized location. So the cloud, the private cloud manager or the system administrator who is in charge of this virtualized environment, he will have all the facilities. He will have all the access to the desktops, and so it can be easily managed from the centralized location. So it will be the cloud manager or the person who is in charge of this enterprise virtualized environment who will manage these desktops. But then the applications and the data, now if they are to be received from a public cloud service provider, then partially these service providers will have the management responsibility of the data and the applications. What they will do is they will take charge of maintaining the healthy running of these applications, and they will also be in charge of the backup and the disaster recovery, all those very high-end data protection and availability. That kind of a service will be taken care of by the service provider. But most of the day-to-day management of the desktops, the updates, the patches, and all the housekeeping activities on the desktops will be taken over by the enterprise administrator. Most of the management will be done by the enterprise administrator. The high-end, making the data and the applications available to the users, that will be taken care of by the the service provider, the cloud service provider, if the desktops are going to be delivered from the from the public cloud. Now, monitoring and maintenance services will be provided by managed service providers. In the sense, there can be a managed service provider who is going to manage the desktops of a few enterprises from his location. Now, there can be enterprises, small, medium enterprises, which do not want the responsibility of managing the desktop and the applications and the data by appointing a very specialized technician or an administrator in their location. So they can give the responsibility of managing these kind of desktops. Their enterprise desktops could be 20 or 25 or 50 or 500. These can be managed by an independent managed services provider who will be in charge of managing the desktops, the applications, and the data for them, and the patching and the updating of the software, the health the upkeeping of the health of the software. All of that can be taken over by this particular set of managed service providers, who will be different from the public cloud service provider, because they will be adding their services to the services that the public service provider, public cloud service provider will be providing. So the desktops will be managed by not the person who is going to use the desktop, not required. The desktop user will now have ample time enough to do his own activities that very much are core to his profile. So he can get away from the responsibility of managing or maintaining the data in his own desktop, so he can concentrate more on delivering the business or on expectations that the enterprise has for him. Now, how will the future desktop impact business? Businesses will focus on the core deliverables. Don't have now worry about who's going to manage our desktops, whether it's going to be in one location or 4 locations or 10 locations spread across geographically all over the globe. They don't have to worry about managing these desktops and the applications and the data. All the businesses need to do now is to focus more on their core deliverables, the infrastructure that is required to host their business applications and other mailing and communication and other office files. All of those are now taken over by the service providers. So the businesses will benefit from this particular environment where they have ample time enough to spend more of their resources, the time and their people resources, on the core deliverables. Now, enterprises, businesses spend a lot of money to acquire a lot of assets and resources in order that they can set up this IT environment and an infrastructure that will help them build their business and grow their business. But most of the time, the amount of money that is being invested is not giving them enough tangible results. What happens is they put in some money to acquire, not some money, they put in a lot of money to acquire technology, but all those resources are being not being put to use at the optimum level. The reason being, if a particular asset is being bought, an IT asset is being bought for a particular project, the complete set of resources that come up with that particular asset is dedicated for the whole project, and the project might not completely use all those resources. So likewise, if there are many projects running in an enterprise and each is given a separate infrastructure for running their projects, then a lot of money is being invested, but then ultimately, when things are brought to account, we see that the money that was put for acquiring those assets has not given them the returns enough. The reason being, if they had planned for 100% utilization of the assets that they acquire, the project would have consumed only 15 or 20% of the resources. Now, when businesses are looking at virtualization and desktop delivery from a virtualized environment, what happens is the resources are all pooled. The storage resources, the network resources, the file resources, the server, the hardware server resources, all of these, the memory, the processor, these are all pooled at the data center. And so what happens is these resources are put to the maximum or the optimum use, because all these resources are made available to all the users all the time. So when there is a peak requirement of a resource, when there is a peak requirement of a given resource, the person who requires that particular resource will be given that particular resource, and that resource without any limit, because the resources are pooled at the data center. Say, for example, I want so much allocation of storage space for my project. Now, if that is from a pooled resource, then the storage space that is allocated will be very much more than enough for that particular project if it is pulled out from a pooled resource or environment. So what happens is the amount that was invested in acquiring these resources for the IT infrastructure setup is now made available to everybody, and ample resources for all who are going to use. So the return on investment is going to be of it's going to be really very much on the higher side. Again, user self-service will reduce dependence on the skilled IT personnel for provisioning of resources. For example, if at all there is a new project that is coming in, and there is a requirement of, say, 25 desktops for that particular project, the project manager need not go to the IT, the system administrator or the CIO and request for more resources, provide them 25 desktops and all the resources that are connected to it. What the project manager has to do is just connect to the cloud and provision for himself so many number of desktops. So what happens is the user self-service, that is going to be of a great advantage for people who are going for new ventures and who want to scale up from their current level of activity to higher level of activity. Now, it can also be the other way around, where people do not want much of the resource that has been allocated for them. They can release the resources through the user self-service in order that those resources can be made available to people who really require such resources. Now, again, when it's going to be a virtualized environment for desktops, the agility in setting up or scaling up the IT resources will increase manifold. So they don't have to wait for 2 or 3 days or a week in order that an infrastructure is made available for a particular department or a particular project. All that would happen is they will log into their system and immediately ask for this particular provision, and within few minutes they will be able to access all the resources that are required for a project or a new venture. So the desktops that are available through these kind of virtualized environment, there will be less firefighting and less help desk service requests. So people can function with greater independence. People can function with greater, flexibility and have access to these services from the cloud, the private or the public cloud. What impact will this have for the society? It's going to bring people closer than ever before. We know that people today are very much aware of the social business applications that are coming up, that have already taken the much of their time or much of their life, I would say. The Facebook, the Twitter, or the YouTube, or whatever, all of those are going to be available to people on their desktops as business applications, in such a way that people will become much more connected, and connected always 24/7. So what happens is, any information that is required by anybody from anybody is always made available to those people then and there. So people who are half a world across can share their information with each other with the help of this kind of a cloud environment, and that instantly. So you don't have to worry about people sitting in different branch offices, or who are sitting in the different geographically separated places. What locations? What happens is, this distance between people will now become very, very what do I say? The distance between people will disappear, I would say. Collaboration across geographies will be easier than ever. A particular a file or an image that I want to share with my colleague who is in the US, when I'm sitting in India, can be transferred in a moment, and that person will have access to my file there. And not only that, both of us can work on the same file at a time, whether it's going to be an image file or an office file, a spreadsheet or a document or a presentation. We can work on the same file at a time. Now that's going to be the future of the applications that we will be using. So collaboration across geographies, that's going to be easier than ever. Now, social business applications will rule the behavior of the individuals. And so what happens is the enterprises will make use or take mileage or benefit from the social business applications, and expand their businesses, and also keep their employees connected together in order that they can function better. The productivity, the everyday job productivity of the employees is going to increase manifold because of the network that is going to spread wide across through these special social business applications. So it's going to really benefit the society very much, because people will come closer, and the interaction between people will be much more. Now, talking about the personal life, people today complain about we don't have enough time to interact with people in our families. But then families now can benefit from this kind of a cloud desktop virtualized environment, in the sense people can work from home and deliver the same or much more than what they would be doing when they have to travel to their offices, say traveling in today's traffic, spending 2 or 3 hours in the car or a cab, going to the office and then sitting down there and delivering their work. That is going to be a lot of energy sapping and time consuming. So then, when people can work from their own places, then it's going to be a better environment for them to work, more freedom for them to work. So what happens is, they can have a better productivity or results shown because of the freedom and the independence with which they are able to work. It's going to be management by objective. So the people who are assigned a job, they will be expected to deliver the results. That's all. It does not matter where they sit to work or where they move or whether they travel. Then all that would boil down to is the objective met, and that will be met because of the independence and the freedom with which people can work, because the desktops are available to them from anywhere in any device. Now, all the domestic gadgets will also be controlled and managed from the desktop itself. That is also possible. We also have advertisements coming about some of the ACs being controlled at home through your mobile phone. Now, that is one small example of how the domestic gadgets can also be controlled from your desktops, whether they are going to be laptops or mobile devices. You can manage the domestic gadgets also from your desktop. Now, touch is going to replace the pick and the keyboard. That is going to be something really happening in the coming year or the next year, because all the big software vendors, the leading software vendors today are coming up with applications and operating systems that will support this touch, and that will help them to work faster and will help them to do their work better. So touch is going to be the norm hereafter. The keyboard, even the keyboard will be a virtual keyboard, and you need to touch the screen, not that you can type out whatever commands or whatever input that you want to give through. Again, not only touch, there are also a lot of inventions going on and a lot of technology that is being developed where your gestures are much more than enough in order to give a command to the applications in your desktop. Now, a couple of days back, there was a big gathering at Bangalore by a leading software vendor, and about more than 3,000 techies were gathered in that particular gathering that happens every year, where the software vendor, they were showcasing their new products, and the most important product that they were showcasing was the new operating system that is to come up as the next version, and suppose touch and even the gestures. So that's going to be ruling the day in the years to come. So virtual buttons, I think you should look at some of the very beautiful videos that are available at the TED.com. Hope some of you would have already have seen some of the videos there, like a video from Pranav Mistry. He has come up with the sixth sense technology. That video that I saw was very, very impressive. It's going to be all gestures, your hand movements, your speech, all of those will be recognized by the desktops that are coming up. All right. So virtual buttons, and they are not even going to be physical. You will point to a button on the screen through your finger, and immediately the command is given. Such technology is available today. So that's going to be what is going to happen in the technology, the desktop, the virtualized desktop that is going to happen in the coming days. Now, the technologies that are enabling this vision, what are the technologies? Today, we know virtualization. We didn't hear about virtualization 5 years back. But then virtualization is now in place everywhere. Every CIO wants a virtualized environment in their enterprise. Now, virtualization is one very big technology that has enabled this kind of a freedom for people to work from anywhere, in any gadget, in any device. So that desktop virtualization is going to be possible through the virtualization technology that is available from many vendors today. Virtualization has been the most important technology that has enabled the cloud to rule today, because the cloud is made possible with the help of the server virtualization and the storage network virtualization, and also the vendors who are providing this cloud service as a public cloud service. They're able to provide their own platforms, their own infrastructure, in order that people can make use of the infrastructure as a service or the platform as a service, and you can have access to those resources that they provide. Now, the cloud, the public cloud as well as the private cloud. The public cloud is where the vendor, the service provider, that service provider gives you the platform or the infrastructure. A private cloud can be built in your own, in the enterprise's own data center, where resources are pooled, and the virtualized environment enables people to have their desktops getting delivered to their gadgets. Touch sensors are available. You would see the some of the screenshots that I have been able to pull out. This is the one at the top is a mobile device that's going to run the newest operating system. This is another gesture identifying the second one. The picture that is showing up is going to be another gaming device, which will immediately recognize your gestures and immediately respond to those gestures. In this way, you will be able to do a lot of real-time gaming, even inside your home, indoors. There are also face recognition technology that is available today. A lot of developments going on this particular side, where the identity of a person can be recognized very, very quickly, and with this in place, the security of the data is going to be much more given a greater security. The data is going to be of greater in a very, very secure atmosphere, in such a way that the device will recognize the face and allow the access of data. That way, it's going to be face recognition and gesture recognition, touch sensors. All of these are some of the technologies that will enable this this kind of a desktop environment to exist for everybody, everywhere. Now, some of the interesting videos that I had been talking to you about, I would suggest you search for this productivity future vision from YouTube, and that will give you a real good view into what a very leading software vendor is looking at in the coming years in terms of technology, in terms of the services that they're going to provide. Also, in TED Talks, I would suggest you go to The Thrilling Potential of Sixth Sense Technology by Pranav Mistry. That also, I think, would be of a great view to you, because that also has got a lot of new ideas that that are going to be made available to people. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. If you have got questions, or if you want to contact me, you can also contact me through this particular email address. questions. I got a number of questions here. What is the minimum speed that is required to access the desktop virtualization from Ramesh Rajamani? Now, the speed that depends on how good your connectivity, your internet connectivity is. So it will the technology that is available will deliver your desktops within a few seconds. That's what is available today. So it's not going to be even minutes in order the desktops will be delivered to the virtual desktop will be delivered to the devices. How secure the data will be as it is managed by the third-party service provider? That's a question from Murali Krishna. Now, what is the guarantee that the data is secured as a provider might be providing services to multiple clients? There is something called as a non-disclosure agreement and also the service level agreement that the cloud service provider will enter into with the service user, that is the enterprise, and they also comply with a lot of governmental and organizational requirements, and so the security of your data will not be compromised by the service provider because of the agreement that you would enter into. As the data stored centrally in the cloud, can we share the data among multiple users? Is a question from Govardhan. Now, the data among multiple users can be shared. You can share the data. In fact, I told about an instance where I can send or I can have a particular file stored in a centralized storage, and I can open the file from my side. I can ask 2 or 3 or 4 of my colleagues to open the same file from their sides, and we can all collaborate together at the same time. So this is possible, Govardhan. How do two people get connected to the same desktop virtually and do the pair programming? That's a question from Ramesh Rajamani. Now, a virtual desktop will be delivered to the gadget that you're going to use, and that desktop will be your own desktop under your own login name and a password. So when you log into that device and get that desktop delivered to you, it is going to be a desktop of yours only. So it's going to be the desktop that you have been using in your laptop or in your PC or in your iPad or whatever, a mobile device. So that is going to be your own. It's your identity. Nobody else can open your desktop unless you share your password with somebody. So two people will have two different desktops, one against each username and a password. Is there a more risk of unauthorized access? Now that is not going to be in place because the desktop, virtualized desktop, will be delivered to a person who has the right login name and a password. So the unauthorized access question would not come into place because the login name and the password is very much private and belongs to a single person. Unless you share your login name and a password with somebody else, your the desktop will not be accessed by anybody else unauthorized. Now, there is another question from Ramesh Rajamani. If the desktop is available through online, then what is the use of the desktop? It is connected to the remote desktop. Do the enterprise need to spend for both the desktops. Now, you mean, I believe you mean the hardware that you are talking about. Now, if the hardware is what you're talking about, then it need not be the same hardware. There are a lot of less costly desktops which are called as thin clients that are available. The enterprises can reduce the cost of buying full-fledged desktops if they go for thin clients, where they will spend less money, but then the same virtualized desktop can be delivered to those thin clients. So it's not going to be a question of a lot of money being spent on the PCs for enterprises. How can I convince my company about the security of information if it is in the cloud? It's from Euroneam. Now, you can download or ask for the service agreement from the service provider, and also the terms and conditions under which the service is being provided, and the SLA that the service provider is offering you, and present all of this as documents for consideration at your enterprise, and convince them about what. Again, the credibility of the service provider is also very, very important. There are hundreds of cloud service providers everywhere available globally, but then you need to zero in on that particular cloud service provider, a public service provider, cloud service provider, who can meet your requirements according to your terms. Now, if that is given due diligence, you will always be able to identify the best service provider for your requirement. If it's a private cloud, how much the company has to pay and who will monitor the same from the company is another question from Euroneam. Now, a private cloud is going to be set up in your data center, and the enterprise would have already spent a lot of money to acquire a lot of resources. What you're going to do when you are setting up a private cloud is you're going to pool the resources and virtualize the environment. So most of the hardware would be already available in your in your premises. So all you need to do is you will have to find the technology that will help you to set up a private cloud environment, and with the competition in the virtualized space, there are a lot of software vendors that can certainly meet your budget and help you set up a private cloud. What is more cheaper for SMBs, public cloud or private cloud, is a question from Vibhuti Bhushan Mohanty. Now, the public cloud is something that you might want to try, at least for some of the non-critical applications that you are looking at. Like, for example, the communication applications, instant messaging, audio-video conferencing, or mailing, or again, talk about document management system. Those things can be considered by SMBs for a public cloud environment, because they are readily available, and the services that are available from credible service providers are really very good. So you can start from a public cloud, and if you are looking at setting up a private cloud, you might want to zero in on which are the critical applications that you want to keep here, and then set up a private cloud. Private cloud might take a little longer for you to build and operate. Now, public cloud is available to you readily. And on the long run, it's always the private cloud that will give you a cost benefit than the public cloud. I'm sorry. Will the corporates need to have a backup strategy in place due to connectivity issues which we face in India? Is a question from Sivaraman Vasudevan, and looks like he has left. Now, the answer to that question is the backup, the first line backup of your data, the mails and the files and all the information on the cloud. The first line backup will be taken responsibility by the cloud service provider, but you can also set up a complete backup infrastructure in order that you will have the information stored up for your later reference through a private backup setup. What about high availability of data in unforeseen event of disaster and data center recovery? Is a question from Amit Verma. Amit, I would say the high availability part of your data in the public cloud is very, very high, in the sense there are multiple instances of your data being stored in different data centers spread across the globe. And so even if data from a data center in a given location is lost because of various reasons, could be natural or man-made, there is always another place where your data is made available from. So high availability on the public cloud is of a great degree, and you can always make use of this particular feature if you're looking at your data being made available to people all the time. There are a couple of more questions. Let me see if I can address them right away. How can I get a service agreement from the provider? Do we need to pay beforehand? Now, Euroneem has got this question. The service agreement is made available to any subscriber even before the subscriber goes for or registers for the service. So most of the cloud service providers, they share their service agreement with people. You can make a request of it from the provider directly or from a partner who will facilitate this service for you. Amit Verma has another question. You mentioned increase in productivity and efficiency of an individual. Not much time is spent on, let's say, developers' time. How would the cloud increase both? Developers, they can develop their applications and test their applications on the platforms that are provided by the platform as a service provider. And so developers also can look forward to a lot of boost in their productivity. Okay, Govardhan has got a very good question. He says, as the user can work from anywhere, does it mean user is blocked in all ways, both in office and out of office? Well, it might sound a bit humorous, but then yes, you are connected always, but then that does not mean that you are say putting yourself into trouble because of this 24/7 connectivity. You have the freedom to work from anywhere, from any device, and so it keeps you connected with your people all the time. But then when teams work together, then there is no question of a particular person being burdened with a lot of work on at an hour that is not comfortable for anybody. So all depends on how you play as another player in the team. So if you got more questions, I think I've exhausted most of the questions. If you got more questions, you can always come back to me through the email address that I have shared with you. Thank you everybody for participating in this webinar.
Hello.
Yes.
Your voice is not coming.
I've completed this
Okay.
activity.
Okay.
I've closed the webinar. Yes, sir.
There's one or two more questions. Would you like to take those questions?
I can. Let me see if I can take them now.
I've shared those questions with you.
There is a question from Sumit Paul. If the desktop went on cloud, then does every user have to pay money for accessing? Now, since the desktop will be delivered from the cloud, a person who is accessing the desktop from the cloud certainly has to pay. But then if it's a desktop, your office desktop, then the enterprise will pay for it. If it's going to be your private desktop, then you will certainly have to pay for the services that the public cloud service provider provides, as well as the managed service provider, if there is one, he provides your his services to you. And that's another question. What is the minimum configuration needed of the system for connecting? Is a question from Fani Medicetti. Now, I told you desktops can be delivered to even clients, in the sense you don't have, you don't require a high-end desktop in order that your desktop, your virtual desktop can be delivered to your gadget. Minimum configuration, very little memory and processing is all that you would require in order that the desktop can be delivered to you.
So most of the questions have been answered. Yeah.
Most of it, I think I have answered. Yes.
Wow. If there are any more questions coming from the attendees, so we can take them offline. I would request attendees to post their questions on techgig.com webinar page.
Please.
So now we can conclude this session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody who participated in this webinar, who have been bringing questions during the webinar. So post more questions on TechGig, and we will be able to answer your questions there. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Augustus, for the informative session. I would also like to thank the participants for making this webinar a huge success. The next session in TechGig webinars is happening tomorrow at 3 p.m. Topic for the webinar is JLR integration in WPS or Silverlight, a next generation capital markets application. We will be having Mr. Manish Agrawal, Senior Specialist at Sapient Global Markets, as our expert speaker tomorrow. See you all tomorrow at 3 p.m. Thank you.